Hi, welcome to Courageous Journeys. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Today I want to talk about independence. For most of us, we have learned that we need to rely on ourselves. Sometimes we feel like we can't trust other people. Often it's about wanting to be sure and have some level of control over our lives, not wanting to depend on anybody. For some of us, we learn that at a very early age because of childhood trauma. In that case, we develop a sense of independence as a way to survive, as a way to cope. It serves us well for much of our lives in many ways. But as an adult, or even as a child, but especially as an adult when we are more safe if we've experienced childhood trauma, it keeps us from connecting. It keeps us from being vulnerable and taking a risk in trusting people, even people who have shown us that we should be able to trust them. That independence often keeps us from having the life and the relationships that we so deeply desire. This has been true in my own life, and it's still something that I find I really have to be conscious of, and it's taken a long time. But it hasn't been until I've allowed myself to really see that I was fiercely independent. But from that place of being fiercely independent, which many people see as being really positive and strong, that from that place I kept myself at arm's length. I kept myself from being able to truly receive love and support, because that's what happens when we create this cocoon around us about being fiercely independent and not needing anybody else, or not being able to rely on other people, or that it's not okay to ask for what we need. We keep ourselves from fully experiencing what it means to be in relationship with somebody. Whether that's a child, a partner, a friend, or a therapist. And learning to kind of let go of some of that independence so that we can really connect with and receive from other people. It keeps us from being able to heal and have a mutually healthy, loving, accepting, and giving and receiving relationship. So how many of you can relate to being independent? How many of you wear that as almost like a badge of honor? I am independent. I don't need anybody, right? I think most everybody that I know has said some version of that to themselves. So, how do you let go of that? First, you have to recognize it. You have to recognize that this sense of strength and independence that was developed and that even feels like empowerment. If you find that you feel lonely, that you feel disconnected from those around you, then that independence is actually a barrier. It's a self-protective thing keeping you, or at least theoretically, keeping you from being hurt, being let down. So being able to recognize that that's part of what's happening, obviously, is the first step. Then you have to look at who you have in your life. It can be any number of people, any number of types of relationships. Possibly not with your own children or children in general if you're an adult, because then that can create some other issues around boundaries and appropriateness. And I'm not talking about sexual stuff, but just relying on a child. So who in your life as an adult do you have reason to believe that you should be able to trust or rely on in some way? As I said, it may be a therapist, a partner, a friend, a parent maybe, a coworker. It could be in a work setting as well. Somebody that you might ask for support from, or that you might share something with them about. It could be like in a work environment, it could be saying, hey, I've got a lot on my plate. Can you give that to somebody else? Or calling in sick. In our personal relationships, it's important to recognize who maybe has shared some things with you or asked you for some things. Maybe it's okay to ask that person or to share with that person. If you have a partner, that's absolutely somebody that you should be able to trust, I would hope. Though I know it doesn't always feel like you can. But the idea is recognizing who are those people. And for some people, a therapist is the only person. So don't feel shame around not feeling like you have somebody. Sometimes you really don't have anybody, but sometimes it's more a matter of not feeling safe with that person. So once you've identified who that is for you, you take little risks here and there. You allow yourself to share what's going on with you instead of saying, I'm fine. How are you really? Instead of saying no when somebody says, can I help? Maybe saying, yes, that would be great, thank you. Receiving is an incredibly difficult thing for most of us, no matter what our history is. But when you have a history of childhood trauma, it can be terrifying. Because when we allow ourselves to begin to receive from somebody, it creates an opportunity to be hurt, to be let down, to be disappointed, to be betrayed. So we have to consciously make a choice and allow ourselves to accept that support. It's been a process for me. It's one of the things that I think in terms of healing in relationship with others has been the thing that has been the most challenging in terms of length of time. It took a long time for me to allow my husband, when he's in the kitchen and I'm in the living room, to say, yes, I'd like a glass of water, please. When he's offered, can I get you anything? Because he's great at that. I haven't been so good at accepting. I would say, no, that's okay. And then I'd get up and go get my own glass of water. Right? How many of you do that? And I didn't see it as, oh no, I can't trust him. I just grew up being very independent and doing things on my own. In fact, I remember being somewhere around like 6 or 7 years old, and there were some other adults around. I don't know who they were, but I remember my grandmother saying, oh, she's so independent. Like at 6 or 7 years old, like that was a really good thing. Like she was proud because I was independent and she could tell her friends how independent I was. That's not a good thing. I'm not saying there's not circumstances where that couldn't be a good thing, but in my circumstance, at 6 or 7 years old, being independent wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. It was not trusting anybody around me. And that stayed with me. even her words. I remember that there were times when I remember just in my own mind hearing her say that and feeling some sense of pride in that, which makes it harder to let go of. But independence doesn't equal not needing anybody. Independence is thinking for yourself, not feeling that you have to go along with other people. It's forging your own path, not having to do what everybody else does. It's finding a way to feel and do the things that you want. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I allowed myself to receive from somebody other than my husband, because I'm much better at that, though I will still get up when he's in the kitchen and he's doing something. Can I bring you anything? No, that's okay. And I still get up and go do my own thing, even though he would have very happily done that. And I'm still working on that. But a few years ago, I was at actually a retreat with, I don't know, about 15 other women. And it was my first time meeting them in person. And one day I wasn't feeling well at all. And not that I necessarily would have tried to have hidden the fact that I wasn't feeling well, but I certainly wouldn't have asked anybody for anything. And we were all sitting around the table, and I believe it was lunchtime. And I just had a really bad headache, and people were asking if I was okay, and yeah, I'm okay. I just got a little bit of a headache. And there was a group of about maybe 5 of us, and they were all so supportive and wanting to do something to help. I think all of us, especially as women, but certainly a lot of men too, when we see somebody struggling in some way, we want to do something to help. And they were all, can I do this, or can I try this, or whatever. And so I had people offering, and I was just like, no, I'm okay. And we stayed there together for a while, and then somebody said maybe eating would be helpful, even though the thought of eating made me feel nauseous. And somebody said, let me get you a little bit of something and see if that makes a difference. And I said, okay. Somebody else said, maybe these oils, these essential oils might help. Let me go get some. And of course, my first inclination was, no, that's okay, thank you. And with enough offering, I said, yes, thank you. I ended up laying down, and a few people came periodically to check to see how I was doing. It felt uncomfortable. I felt like I didn't want them worrying about me. I wanted them to just enjoy themselves. But I have to say that maybe not in that moment, because I felt still kind of uncomfortable allowing myself to take that in, that afterwards, when I reflected back on that, recognizing how much of a resistance I was creating to allowing people to support me, people that I would have certainly supported had the tables been turned, but recognizing how much resistance I had to that, and how loving it felt to receive. No matter what happened after that, that in that moment of receiving the care and the support, the desire that they had for helping me feel better, for supporting me, realizing how beneficial that was, recognizing that we all need to feel that we matter. We all need an experience, especially for people that have experienced childhood abuse. We all need to allow ourselves to be in a position to receive from those around us. And that experience, even though it felt uncomfortable to an extent at the time, and this was just a few years ago, and I feel like I've been on the other side of healing for a long time, for quite some time. But there was still that piece that I needed to release, that idea of not letting people be there for me. And when I really reflected on that, I recognized how much I keep myself separate from that support, from that receiving of others. So what that looks like for you is probably going to look quite different. But in terms of allowing people to be there, in terms of allowing yourself to ask for what might feel helpful in that moment, please allow yourself to sit with that. Allow yourself to say, yes, thank you. Really think about that. The next time that somebody offers to do something even small, allow yourself to say, yes, please. And then thank you. It's hard to receive so often because we don't believe that we're deserving of that kindness or support. So in order to heal, or in order even to feel more worthy in our lives, we need to allow ourselves to experience things that we can receive and say thank you, so that we can start to build our sense of being deserving of that thing. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Can you relate to this? Do you see yourself in any of those examples that I gave, in any of those types of relationships? My guess is you can. No matter what your history is, we all struggle with receiving to a certain extent. Even if we maybe receive a lot, do you end up feeling guilty about it, or even ashamed for allowing yourself to receive? Do you say to yourself afterwards, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have asked for that. Because that's the same thing. So share your thoughts in the comments. Ask your questions. I'd love to hear from you. This is something that so many of us can relate to. And the more that we talk about it, the more we heal. The more we receive, the more free we are to give, because we're giving from a space of having received as well. Thank you for watching. See you next time.